Good afternoon and welcome to the February 10th regular council meeting. Thank you for attending. I call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. I would ask council at this time if they have any added items to the agenda. Seeing none then, we'll move down to the adoption of the agenda as presented. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. You were first? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we accept the regular council meeting agenda for Monday, February 10th, 2025 as presented.
Thank you. We've been doing lots of reading and I was going to go for consent, but you're right, we haven't really got that passed yet. Okay. Call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Page 2, please, of your agenda. This is our regular council meeting minutes for January 27th, and at this time I would ask council if you have any changes or if we will go for consent. I have no questions, so we have consent for the minutes for January 27, 2025. We will now move down to item 3. Our delegations and presentations, and if you could turn to page 5 of your agenda, please, item 3A. I would like to invite the Honourable Emily and Nathan Cooper, and welcome on this nice warm day to join our council.
Don't have a very large report, but wanted to provide the opportunity to take some questions from council, and I'll do my very best to answer them or get back to you if I don't know the answer. A couple of quick notes for you with respect to the community and some meetings or interactions that I've had that impact your community. I had a good meeting with the Regional Wastewater Commission last week with the chair and the CAO of the Waste Commission, and a number of topics of conversation that included your community did come up. In particular, working towards trying to minimize some of the loss and waste that are in the system that are well known to members of council, and also some discussion about whether or not or proceeding with grants that have been allocated for the storage pond. So very productive meeting, and I'm happy to go into some of the details if there is any other desire, but also working with them on a bit of a regionalized program to try to see wastewater commissions working better together across the province. Also, as we look forward to the budget, I know it's always of significant interest to members of council. The budget will take place on the 27th of February. That's Thursday, the 27th of February. I know, actually, I don't know if it's been budget. I know some of you have attended throne speeches in the past. If there is a desire for a small delegation of 2 members of council or administration, if there is a desire to attend the budget, as you know, in my capacity as speaker, I do have access to a gallery and a number of seats, and I would be happy to host a delegation of a couple of you in Edmonton on the 27th. The budget will take place at 3 o'clock. Question period that day begins at 1:30. If anyone, if there is an interest, please feel free to reach out to me either through administration or the mayor, or you all have my number. You're welcome to just shoot me a note, and we'll ensure that you're on the list. Be happy to host you. At that budget, I anticipate strong headwinds. I think the Minister of Finance has described it as, and I anticipate that the budget is going to be very tight, extremely tight, and in particular, as we look at the impact of instability in the geopolitical world, and in particular, the impact that even the discussion of tariffs has on the provincial budget. And I know that those discussions and the brinksmanship that's taken place over the past number of weeks and months has seen a significant impact on both revenue projections and in particular, the revenue projections and how that may impact the provincial treasury more broadly. And I'll leave it to the finance minister to discuss the real nuts and bolts of it, but suffice to say that there are lots of pressures that the province will face as a result of potentially a contracting economy and all sorts of challenges that may or may not impact our energy sector. So there's certainly challenging times ahead, and I know that the province is focused on those. But of course, that's going to also impact how we interact with municipalities and the challenges that you guys face as well. So I hope that we will continue to work well together, both between my office and your office, but also between the various ministers in Edmonton. I know that there has been a number of meetings since my last presentation here at council, including the Minister of Transportation and I had a meeting with the mayor and administration, and I understand Minister Glubish had the opportunity to meet with the mayor and administration. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend that meeting, but there have been a number of meetings that have taken place since my last delegation here to council, and I think that shows a good, strong, positive working relationship. So with that said, I'm happy to take some of your questions, and then you can get on to the important parts of your meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I'd like to also, on behalf of council, say that we have been working very well with your staff and yourself, and thank you for attending those meetings you did with us. I would open the floor to council at this time if there's any questions. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Mr. Cooper. I just wanted to ask a question with regards to provincial assets. I know that the province at one point had, or has, I can't remember what year it was when they stopped providing funding on provincial assets that are in communities. And I know the question was brought up with the Premier during the Alberta Munis Conference in September, and I believe some question was asked as well at RMA. And I'm just wondering if you knew anything, because she'd mentioned about being open to looking at that. And I know we don't have a huge amount of provincial buildings here in our community, but I certainly know that it's big amount of money in bigger centers like Edmonton and Calgary. So I'm wondering if you've heard anything about that at all.
So just for clarity's sake, Councillor, the question is with respect to the province paying municipal taxes on provincial assets in municipalities. Is that what you mean?
That's correct.
The short answer is no, I haven't heard anything on it, but I am just jotting myself a note to see where we're at, and I can reach out to Minister McIver. I know that the province has been undergoing a review of provincial assets across the province, including potential sale of a number of assets across the province that are provincially owned. And not that impacts directly the property tax issue, but I'll circle back around to between the Minister of Infrastructure, who is also intimately involved in that review process of provincial assets as well, and the Minister McIver as well, and get back to you. But I haven't heard, there hasn't been much discussion at a caucus level. Perhaps there's been some more discussion at the department level, but I'm not familiar with that, but I'll get back to you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Are there any further questions? Well, okay, Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to the Honorable Nathan Cooper. Not so much a question, I guess, but just, again, the reminder, I think I've said it last time when you were here, and you've referenced and alluded to the pressures that the town of Olds is under, and all the municipalities are, well, relative to infrastructure, aging, and spend. And your foreshadowing and forewarning of the upcoming budget there perhaps doesn't bode well for us and other municipalities in terms of getting funds, but again, I just stress, like, we're stretched as far as we can go. Like, you know, in 2 years, we're spending about $3.5 million on our below-ground infrastructure, water and water mains and wastewater and everything. And GPOT, I think, is where Councillor Ryan was going, the grants in place of taxes have been reduced, you know, over time. Our MSI and now LGFF numbers are being reduced. Again, a comment and just an ask of you, and you've alluded to the meetings that are happening. I know there's a letter from Mayor Dahl to some of the ministers. We just really need your help to advocate for some dollars, although, again, with your foreshadowing of the budget, I'm not sure what we and other municipalities can expect. And if we're going to throw money or allocate money in one area, it's obviously got to come from another area in terms of reductions and prioritizations and everything. But we are, and I guess I wonder, maybe the question is what's the future for the taxpayer? We all know there is only one, and the taxpayer is getting stretched and pulled every which way. Our tax revenue, 30% of it, I believe, is attributable to the provincial education requisition. So our taxpayer is feeling the pinch every time they look around.
You know, I agree with you in many respects that all levels of government feel the continual challenge that is budgeting. Like when you look at health in the province, you know, there's more people in Alberta today than there ever has been. There's more doctors practicing in Alberta than there ever has been. And the costs of healthcare have never been greater. And so the province also feels that pain and burden, if you will, of trying to allocate resources, and in particular with municipalities and infrastructure across the province. You know, there's always going to be a push and pull when it comes to resource allocation. You know, we recently announced a multi-billion-dollar school build project. At the same time, there are schools here in the constituency of Old Didsbury Three Hills that are in desperate need of additional resources. And unfortunately, the pot is only so big. And so the province also makes difficult decisions with respect to the allocation of resources. What I can say is that I as a former municipal councillor, have a sense of the challenges that you face around this table. And in particular, you know, you go to the grocery store and you talk to ratepayers and people are concerned. There's always a push and pull between people that want more services and also lower taxes. Those two things are rarely congruent with each other. But they are the thing that everyone wants at all the time. Well, not everyone wants more services, but like generally speaking, people would like to see more services and at the same time less taxation. And so this continues to drive spending decisions for municipalities in particular, and balancing that infrastructure conundrum that, there's not a municipality in the entire province that doesn't have an infrastructure deficit of some capacity. And the same for the province. So my commitment to you is that we will advocate to the best of my ability, both to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and the President of Treasury Board, who's a good friend and colleague of mine, our constituencies are side by side, so I'm happy to make sure that I do my best to advocate for municipalities as well. So we'll keep at it. Not always successful in the things that I advocate for, but can certainly promise the work that goes behind the advocacy anyway.
Yes, I could understand that you receive probably double the questions we have in the roles that you play as well as Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. So thank you for that answer. And Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the Speaker of the House. You mentioned about the population, how Alberta has got a bigger population today than it has in a long time. Yesterday, I noticed Andrew Knack on social media from Edmonton. They're talking about Edmonton having grown by 120,000 people over the last 3 years. I know the election's not, the next provincial election isn't for another 2 years. Normally, we start seeing the scuttlebutt talking about reallocating electoral districts, as well as maybe even more seats in the House required because of the vast growth of our province. Is that on the Cabinet's or the Public Services Election Alberta's plate as of yet?
Sorry to interrupt, James. It's actually already been pushed down the water slide, if you will. In the last legislative session, the Assembly made a decision to increase the Assembly by 2 members. So it will increase from 87 to 89 members of the Assembly, barring some feedback from the Commission. So the Commission has been initiated. I anticipate the Commission, when I say Commission, I mean Boundary Commission. The Boundary Commission is made up by 5 Albertans, 2 who are appointed by the Government Caucus, 2 who are appointed by the Official Opposition Caucus, and then 1 chairperson who's also appointed by the government, largely. And that those 5 Albertans will go and design a map with 89 seats. Now, as you've noted, a case could be made that that number should be 94 or 97. I'm of the opinion more politicians is not the solution to our problems. So keeping it a little bit tighter and having the average number of constituents grow a little bit is probably a good compromise. At present, it's about 47,000 Albertans that each member represents, and it'll probably be over 50 after the redistribution. But I don't think that we should take 47,000 and take almost 5 million divided by 47,000. Like, at some point in time, there has to be some push and pull. So redistribution will take place for the next election. The Boundary Commission has a year to do its work after it is initiated, and there'll be a draft report about halfway through. The last time this took place, where there was an increase, initially there was no increase recommended, and then they came back and recommended 4 additional members, and they went from 83 to 87. But the past 2 commissions have been static, so this one, the commission has been tasked by the Assembly to do 89 members, and we'll see what it comes back like.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Mr. Speaker. Nathan, when you mentioned earlier about doctors, more doctors than we've seen before. I'm assuming that goes hand in hand with more nurses and LPNs as well. And hopefully we're seeing many of those doctors go to rural areas, because it seems to be rural Alberta that's missing a lot of our physicians and our nurses. And I'm hoping that's what the focus is, and that's what the direction, and you maybe not be able to speak on behalf of the Health Ministry, but I'm hoping that's where we're going to see the increased doctors and nurses.
The provincial government does a number of things to incentivize doctors working in rural Alberta. At present, the provincial government doesn't tell doctors where to practice. And perhaps that's a conversation that needs to take place in the future. I think that I'm inclined to try to incentivize doctors to make decisions that make most sense to work in rural Alberta. Forcing people to work in one area of the province or another is rarely sets both that individual or the community up for success. Certainly, we have an ongoing challenge with recruitment of doctors into rural Alberta, and it is even more prevalent the further you get off of the Highway 2 corridor. So get west or east of Highway 21 on the other side of the constituency and into that Drumheller-Stettler special areas side of the province, it becomes very difficult to recruit doctors. And a number of our communities across the constituency of Old Stitsbury Three Hills, we are working with their doctor recruitment and retention committees and otherwise. So the province continues to make this a priority in terms of incentivizing doctors into rural Alberta. And we also, I'm encouraging the minister to make some policy changes that can also help, particularly with medical graduates practicing in rural Alberta for a period of time immediately following graduation can also be helpful. When doctors get established in rural Alberta, they often stay in rural Alberta, but it's getting them out there that sometimes is the challenging part.
Well, we thank you very much for your time today. I understand you've got a tight schedule. And
Give me a call.
if you, do you have one more question?
You can go ahead if you want, or you can give me a call, whatever your.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yeah, just a brief, quick question. Just, what are you hearing from your constituents and from within your riding, victim services? I know just very early in its realignment and model of delivery service change. Just wondering what you're hearing or from residents, RCMP, detachments, as far as that new model.
I would say that there's been some growing pains with the new model. I haven't heard too much directly from constituents or members of the public, just largely folks from the victim services communities, both here and on the other side of the constituency. But I think, we continue to work together and try to find the best possible solution and move forward for detachments, community members, volunteers, and victims as well, and hopefully we'll get there in the end. Excellent. Thank you all very much. My apologies for not being able to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I hope that it will be productive and successful. And as always, I think most of you have my contact details. Please feel free to reach out at any time. Let me know if any of you are inclined to come. If there's more of you, I don't know, paper, rock, scissors, solve some problems. Sadly, I only have a couple of extra tickets, but I'd be happy to accommodate a small delegation.
We'll hear more from you after February 27th, or your,
I am sure. I am
great to
sure.
hear. Thank
Okay,
you once
take care.
again,
Thank
and
you.
have a good day. I'd ask for a motion, please, to accept for information. Councillor Walsh?
Yes. I move that we accept for information Councillor Cooper, or not Councillor, that's how far back I go. MLA Cooper presentation.
Thank you. I'll ask for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. That was very good to go. We will move down to item 3B, page 6, please. Community Services Quarterly Report. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and Director Lapointe is with us to lead us through this quarterly update. Guy.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor Dahl and Council. I am happy to take you through the quick overview of the Community Services Quarter 4 report this afternoon. Firstly, you'll notice a slightly revised format to the report. The aim was not to introduce significant changes at this time, but to consolidate the details wherever possible, provide a more concise summary, if you will, for Council's benefit. That first page, we had 186 information referrals. If you recall in the old report, there was a breakdown of every agency that we reached out to. We just rolled that up. 21 partnerships and connections were made. That would include things like interagency, the poverty simulation, Men's Shed, the work that we do with BGC. And then, of course, 104 bookings for Jen's Place and 29 for the community office. And you can see the cumulative totals for the year in the right-hand column there. Sorry, just I wanted to note on that last slide too, the subsidized housekeeping and counseling information is new. Community development added this detail to provide council with a broader snapshot of the services that we're currently offering that you might not be aware of as well. Cemetery stats are captured on the next slide, and as you can see, there's a small decrease or decline in sales almost across the board. And there was some talk last time about sunshine trips. They actually ended up slightly higher for the year with a strong final quarter. In terms of the work done by community development, you're aware of the poverty simulation that took place, the progress the Men's Shed is making, and we also have presented numbers associated with the annual Olds Fashion Christmas event as well. Up next for that team is the policies that are coming forward today, actually. There's a summer pilot for day camps, storefront improvement program, which is being introduced, as well as a transit study request for proposal, which is fully funded by grant dollars. Over in Parks and Recreation, you'll see that things were up across the board. Although I do want to caution council that these numbers only pertain to quarter 4. So to avoid this issue in the future, if there's any confusion here at all in the next report, I'll make sure that I add an additional column summarizing the year-to-date totals in that section as well. On the next page, not surprisingly, Parks spent a good part of their time clearing sidewalks and trails, as well as working to open the outdoor rink and prepping for Olds Fashion Christmas. And then on the next slide, once again, much of their work was centered around events, the ODR prep, and maintenance of the ODR as well as some street tree pruning earlier in the quarter. The focus of the upcoming quarter will be to optimize the energy efficiency of the newly installed equipment at the Aquatic Center, pursue new revenue generation opportunities, and advanced naturalization planning for the upcoming summer season. As for communications and engagement, we've seen ongoing steady growth across various social media channels, and the Aquatic Center is by far and away the most popular website page on our homepage there. An internal communications flow document was completed, the new partnership portal where we're listing properties, and the return of the utility bill newsletter sort of highlights the work that was happening last quarter. And for quarter 1, with this team, they'll be presenting a new communication strategy, a marketing plan, and public engagement plan. And they also plan to collaborate with the Mountain View Power Grant Committee to advance Centennial Park planning objectives. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you for your quarterly report. I'll open the floor to council at this time. I would also mention that Jean's Place certainly did take an uprising. It's very good to see. Any questions for our director? Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the director. Just a point of clarification. I was deep in thought as you were talking there. So if I look at page 12 in the key stats, specifically for the Aquatic Center, 2023 and 2024. You said those are quarter-only stats. Okay. I think my question's still somewhat relative, even though those are quarterly stats. So that's quite a positive change for most of the metrics, certainly in terms of visits. Well, say right across the board in terms of those 5 categories. And again, I realize those are just for the quarter, not year end. My question was phrased around, or would be phrased around, when Director Linderman, previous council meeting, presented the aquatic stats, financial picture, she indicated we were about $40,000 below budget. I think there's still some relevance there. I'm just wondering if there's a red thread at all. Do you know, has your department had the time to kind of look through the 2024 numbers relative to the budget performance and where we're going in 2025 with a budget that is slightly lower than 2024's, but still high and increasing expenses? Is there a bit of a red thread here at all? Is there anything as a learning from past life that'll influence how we do business in 2025 as far as visits and revenue? Thank you.
Through the chair, I do want to indicate here as well, the quarterly piece is somewhat confusing. So last year at this point, the facility was closed for a majority of that quarter, and so the numbers are looking like they've actually jumped significantly, but the facility was actually closed for renovations at that point. To your broader question about whether or not we've been able to analyze things, again, the hope is that we're working with the Revenue Generation Committee to look at new ideas and to try to make sure that we're maximizing the use of all of our facilities. And again, we'll take a broader look at the Aquatic Center as well.
And thank you for that response. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A quick question on the cemetery numbers there. So I'm always interested to know how many people have been interned at our cemetery, but I'm more interested in the life cycle of the cemetery. There's another proposal that we're debating, I believe, this week or next week, or it's online, about selling some land that's adjacent to the cemetery that might be used for growth. What is the expected life cycle of our cemetery as it currently is laid out? If you know that off the top of your head.
E.O. Williams.
So by life cycle, I'm assuming you mean capacity based on current burial rates. So council has approved the subdivision and listing for sale of the 10-acre parcel. With that 10 acres included, it's a bit over 200 years of available burial space. With that 10 acres removed, we're estimating 35 to 40 years of available space. And again, that's assuming burial rates stay somewhat consistent, that there's no significant move from burials to cremations, or that the cemetery doesn't have a different kind of a density approach, if you will.
Thank you for that update once again, CEO Williams. Any further questions before I call for the vote? I would ask for a motion, please. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council accepts the Community Services Quarterly Report as presented for information.
Very good, thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried, and thank you once again, Director Lapointe. We'll move down to bylaws, please. Page 20 of your agenda, item 4A, and today we are looking for all 4 motions. So at this time, I will start with the repeal for bylaw 2025-01 for first reading. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the repeal bylaw 2025-01 be given first reading as presented.
Call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Second reading, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the repeal bylaw 2025-01 be given second reading as presented.
Call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Unanimous consent, please. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the repeal bylaw 2025-01 be given unanimous consent for third reading.
We'll now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Third and final reading, please. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that the repeal bylaw 2025-01 be given third reading as presented.
We'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving down our agenda then, please, to page 22, bylaw 2025, and this is for records and information management. We'll go directly to that bylaw. We're looking for second and third reading. Is there anything you would like to speak to before we call for the? All right, I would then ask for second reading. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council gives second reading to the Records and Information Management Bylaw 2025-02 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And third and final reading. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council give third and final reading to the Records and Information Management Bylaw 2025-02 as presented.
Call for the third, or sorry, we'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Moving down to bylaw 2025-03, page 27 your agenda, and I'll turn this over to CEO Williams briefly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Even though I was not present at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week, I did touch base with the legislative clerk to discuss the main outstanding point prior to this bylaw going for legal review, and that was the matter of electronic attendance of elected officials. So two things at a high level before I can let Councillor Blatz reintroduce it for today. The amendments you see before you were made based on the premise being too prescriptive was going to get us into a situation in pretty short order where you would find a councillor or a council having to ask for permission outside of the scope of the bylaw. So things like rationale for being able to miss a meeting or or any other matters like that. But primary rationale for missing meetings was not worth putting into the bylaw, nor was permissitory timeline, whether it be 1 day, 5 days, 14 days. The second piece is noted at the end, method of seeking approval. It was left in there as section 74, but as council is well aware, the MGA is not that flexible on council making a decision outside of council meetings, so I would like to leave section 74 as is, but ask this question specifically during the legal review on the best methods for a councillor to obtain approval, whether it be through the mayor or through informal mechanisms like email. It's just something I'm not comfortable enough answering myself right now, so that's the second caveat for today. Everything else looked good from administration's end, and I'll pass it to Councillor Blatz, who wants to say a few words on other things.
Thank you, Sierra Williams. And just for council's information, as Councillor Cummings had missed the last couple of meetings, when he did return from his vacation, he sent in a couple of questions and queries that he had sent off to myself and Councillor Ryan and our legislative coordinator. So anyway, you will note some changes, and we will have to accept this as amendment on page 42, paragraph 140 to 142. They will now be listed as a subparagraph of 140. On page, on paragraph 147, the word avoid was there. We will have to change that to void. And the last thing that I think that he wished to say, is in paragraph 154, page 44, we must just use the same language as mayor or other presiding officer, just for continuity and consistency. So if there's any other further questions from that, then otherwise this is going to legal as the CAO has indicated, and until we get it back from him, I don't know there's much else that we could say or discuss at this point in time. So thank you for your time, and again, this will have to be accepted as amended, so.
Thank you very much for that update and information. Is there another question? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion then. This will be going to legal first and then coming back to council. Council Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accept the amended procedural bylaw 2025-03 for information and direct the chief administrative officer to obtain a legal review of the bylaw.
Thank you very much. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for all the updates. We will move down now to page 50 of your agenda, 5A, and this is Committee of the Whole Policy Recommendations. I think we could just move forward. We have item A, so I will ask for a motion for item A. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve policy 131C, Family and Community Support Services, as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I do understand that we did receive the information. Very good. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And item B, please. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council approve policy 232C, special events, as presented.
I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Very good. We will now follow the agenda under new business. Continue on to page 54, item 5B, tax exemptions. Again, council has asked for these to come back for further information. I do note that we had the information received, and I will ask for the first motion, please. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that the application for property tax exemption submitted by the Friends of the Grizzlies be accepted for the 2025 taxation year.
Thank you. There's no further questions with the information received. I call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And the second motion, please, for Montview Lodge. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the application for property tax exemption submitted by Mountain View Lodge, number 16, AF and AM, be accepted for the 2025 taxation year.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I'll ask the same question. I see no hands. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving down to, sorry? Councillor Cummings?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Do you mind if I ask a quick question about this before we move on?
Certainly, ask the question.
Thanks. Normally, we receive more than these two odd ones. Is this just an out-of-sequence request, or is this the actual sequence request that we'd normally receive each year in the timeline that we normally receive them?
All of the applications were taken to the January 27th council meeting, so there was 10, I believe, and these two were just tabled to this meeting. So all the other ones were approved at the last meeting, and now just these two.
Question, council was seeking for more information for these two items, and they are in, if you so choose, in our package. Our legislative clerk added all the details. All right, we'll move forward from here. We are now going to page 59 of your agenda, correspondence and information, and I would get a motion on the floor, and then we can ask questions. Who would like to make that motion, please? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the correspondence and information report ending February 10th, 2025 be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any questions to any of the correspondence you've received in your agenda package for correspondence? I see none, so I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. It was good information, very informative. Just to remind you again, Reed Ranch School, we donated money from Montview Power, so they're having an open house. And for the viewers, all the rest of the information is in our agenda package. Moving down to page 70 now, please, of the agenda. And this is our CAO report. Mr. Williams?
Thank you again, Mayor Dahl, and I will be fairly brief also. The two items in the agenda, the report of problem summary for January, 26 total complaints, almost all weather related, both with freezing, snowing, and thawing. Nothing outside of the ordinary. And then with the slightly reformatted council action items list that's going to respond to specific council motions made, that has been included in the same template. The first item outstanding from the previous format, the outstanding example case for the boards, committees, and commissions appointment, how administration will be proposing to present it to the News Council this October. We want to get this council's feedback, as we discussed at the last org meeting. That should be coming to council in early March. The two items mentioned for adjusting our future budget packages and deliberations have been noted and will be included into future budget discussions. And then the one outstanding that has not had action yet, but Councillor Walsh did speak to it briefly in his last board report, would be to summarize the impact of OML, Olds Municipal Library Service level reductions as a result of the budget being held at 2024 levels. So I hope to get that to council in the coming weeks. That's all I had for my report, but happy to take any questions on this, that, or the other thing.
Do councilors have any questions for our CAO? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion then to accept for information. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council accept the CAO report for information.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor. I then ask for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. That concludes our council meeting for today, February 10th, and I will now adjourn the meeting at 1:47 p.m. Thank you for those who have connected with us and gallery members. Thank you.